I must say that Christians in Syria actually live in an area run by the government, and they are secure. They have been in danger 2 years, 3 years ago, but since Aleppo has been freed, they are secure and they have no problem of Daesh inclusion. But they are not secure financially. They have problems because Aleppo has been destroyed, and the industries in Aleppo, the infrastructure, the school, hospitals in Syria and in Aleppo particularly has been destroyed, and this has been very difficult for our people, and as well for Christian or Muslims. But we must say that we do not feel any danger now living in Syria, where we have the protection and law of the government. Other thing, what is really making us suffer is the disintegration and the immigration of our people. There are a huge movement of leaving the country, which is alimentated and supported by a number of non-governmental governmental organizations, ONG in French, which are making easier their departure, and even sometimes which are giving them transportation, visas, and everything. We have seen with a big suffering ourselves, pastors, and people who love the church in Syria and the country, who were suffering when we were seeing group of number of Christians living together to Belgium, Canada, Australia, some people, Sweden, Germany, and all these people were encouraged to do it. We have some people telling us that they used to have phone calls from different consulate or from different agents to tell them, why you don't come? Everything is ready for you. Come, you will have possibility to live abroad. They will give you some support, give you some money, and so on. And this, for us who have lived in this country, and particularly for the pastors and for the people cultured and who is aware of about our history, it's a big suffering. We have been in this country as Christian for 2,000 years. We were the first Christian in the church, the first church in the world. We have been baptized by the apostles in Jerusalem the day of Pentecost. I don't know if you know about this story. You have read in the Acts of the Apostles that the Jews had the tradition to make a pilgrimage for Pentecost, Jewish Pentecost, to Jerusalem. And this time, the Jewish Pentecost coincided with the Christian Pentecost. And the Acts of the Apostles says that thousands of people coming from the diaspora, which was Syria, the large Syria, to Jerusalem, and 3,000 of them were baptized. And these 3,000 went back to their cities, Damascus, Aleppo, Sidon, Beirut, etc., and Christian life began in Syria. And that's why later on, when the chief of the Jewish community in Jerusalem noticed that they were growing very quickly, they sent people to arrest them like Saul and to oblige them to reintegrate the Jewish community. And it was, for us, significant, and it means that really the church was beginning, has begun in Syria. St. Paul was converted on his way to Damascus, baptized in Damascus by Anania and the church in Damascus, ordained priests and sent from Damascus to the world.
Yeah, Monsignor.
That's why it is a very big, very difficult moment when we see what happens. The radical Islam is an Islam. And Islam do not accept that any person may be free to have another faith or not to be Muslim. You are okay when you are Muslim. And this is the problem. That's why they consider that all people who are not Muslims are to be put aside or to be excluded or to be enslaved. And if these people want to live among Muslims, they must be servants, and they must pay dues, and etc. It's something they have in their book and in their tradition, and that's why it's very difficult to find a way to go out of this conception, unless they agree, they accept that the Quran may not be the ipsissima verba di Dio. They consider the Quran revealed word by word. In that case, if you do not do what the Quran asks you to do, you are going against the will and the wish of the Lord. You understand? Logically, it's normal. But the problem is there. They have to agree to accept that they have to interpret the Quran and to read it in a new way, a new lecture, to be able to go out of their problem. And it is their problem. It provokes difficulties and problems to the others, but the problem is theirs, not the problem of the other. The others are the victims of their misunderstanding. And this is very important. Many Muslims are aware of that and try to go ahead. But the fundamentalists who are not enough cultured and open to the world are not on a level to understand that. In Syria, they used to live together. We used to live together. For decades, we have been living like brothers, like friends, and we had no problem of that kind. Each of us had his own belief and his religion, and we were happy to live together and respecting each other. With this Arabic Spring, which has promised us reform and democracy and freedom, we have received fundamentalism, Daesh, and slavery. It is true and not true, because in the Quran and the teaching of Islam, you may have some teaching less fundamentalist. But it is true, because jihad is when you fight for God, for Islam, for the extension of Islam. So it's not so easy to make clear the things. You have to pay attention to that, and Muslims must know that they are in comfortable situation toward living with the others. I must say that some of them say, but the majority do not. No. I'm afraid they are under pressure of their politicians, and they were not aware that the things were as bad as they are, and they were confronted to fake news in a very bad communication system, and the media were bought by the fundamentalists and those who are supporting them. And they used to have all the information through one information office in London, l'Observatoire Syrien des droits de l'homme, the Syrian Observatory for the Human Rights, which was a fundamentalist office or position, put it in, and they used to have all of their news from there. And they didn't, in the beginning, they didn't agree and accept that we may give a witness, we may give an, our position, our opinion. They considered that we were bought by the government. I mean, we have never been bought by anyone but by Christ. And we believe in Christ and we rely on Christ and we consecrated not what we have, but ourselves to Christ. And when you consecrate yourself to Christ, you do not care about what people may say. You try to see what is right, what is the truth, and to communicate it. And the truth and what is right and what is good for the church, for the Christians, for the Lord, to bear witness to the Lord, is that we may remain. But if we remain in this country, we need it not fundamentalists. We do not accept that the Muslim fundamentalists or other Muslims come, because they will not give us any freedom. We try to remain faithful to God, but also not against the regime, which has many defects, but which has also many, qualities, particularly the pluralism, non-confessionalism. They agree that everybody may live freely in the country and have its rights. That's why we were, against the revolution, against this Arab Spring, which has shown to be a winter spring, a winter Arab, not an Arab Spring. We have many reasons to say that they didn't accept that we may say that it was a complot against Syria, but it was a complot, and now we see it. We see that really everything shows that what happened was a decision to destruct Syria, to destruct this country, which was going up, and which would have been for all the region, all the Muslim countries, an example of living together, an example of democracy the Oriental way, because we do not have your democracy. Our culture doesn't allow us to have your democracy, and we were not enough mature to have it. Neither ourselves nor the others country around us. And what is important too is that they didn't want that Syria may remain Syria. They wanted to make different country of this country, different states, Kurdish state, Alawite state, Druze state, Sunni state, and perhaps a Christian state in Lebanon. I don't know. The project was that, but thank God it didn't happen. Beforehand, myself, I used to think that some information we got were exaggerated. For example, when they say that 80 countries were against us in this war, that hundreds of thousands of people were sent to make jihad and war in Syria, and that they received thousands of tons of weapons. I thought that it was just exaggeration of our propaganda. Now I am convinced that it was exact, because we have heard Robert Ford, which was the ambassador of the United States in Syria, declaring that these things were exact. And we have heard the Prince of Qatar, after being replaced by his son. Yeah. He said that the Arab countries, the Gulf countries, have spent 100 billion, 37 billion dollars to make this war in Syria. And if you you were Syrian, you would understand that $137 billion make 137 times 500 billion, because $1 billion means 500 billion Syrian pounds now, which is a huge amount for Syrians, because even though the inflation has come, but the level of life and the income of the people is in Syrian pound. It has been perhaps augmented of 3 times, multiplied by 3 times, but not by 10, which means that they can buy everything in Syria with all this money, and thousands of tanks and of troop-carrying cars, of pickups, thousands were sent by Turkey, by all other countries, and hundreds of thousands of tons of weapons were sent in Syria. It's terrible. That's why I ask myself sometimes if it is not a miracle that we have been really saved of the collapse, saved of the disintegration. It is incredible. Humanly speaking, it is impossible that this situation, this regime may remain. But it is the hand of God, because it will be the reason why Christians may continue living there, even though they have lost half of them. Half of them have left. But we hope that with half remaining, we'll do what we can, our best, to give them good education, to prepare them to continue the life of this church, which is a relic for the old church, a symbol for the permanence of the church. And as a pastor, I feel that it is my duty to do my utmost to help the church remain. And I decided to consecrate the remaining years of my life for that cause, that reason. I'll do what I can to help people remain in Syria. And I'll ask all those who want us, and all those who want to help us, who loves us, to help us remain in our country, not to take us to their country. We need not to go away. Our country is enough, wealthy, if we work in it. Help us to remain in our country. Help us to work in our country and to continue there. You will be happy and we will be happy.